The second thing you need to do, the moment you get the questions, go first for the easiest ones. This would help to boost your confidence. Okay? Anxiety is the main reason why you get into the exam hall and your mind goes blank. Usually, your body is configured to respond to stress in a flight or fight mode. And so when this happens, your body supplies or releases stress hormones, usually cortisol or adrenaline. Okay? So what happens majorly when you get into the exam hall and suddenly you are blank? It is because you automatically triggered a response that made your body supply or release cortisol or adrenaline. So whenever you find out that you are in the exam hall and suddenly you can no longer pick up what you have read, it is almost always because of this very reason. Your hippocampus is usually very responsible for this response. Your stress hormone, even though can be good because you need it to be able to be alert while studying, okay? Even when you're responding to questions in the exam. Many times, when it is over-secreted, it causes a temporal disruption in your hippocampus, in the communication between your hippocampus and the prefrontal lobe. Alright, so this is what happens when you get into the exam hall and you suddenly feel blank. What are the signs you will see to know that you are beginning to get into that phase? First is you suddenly realize that you're beginning to sweat profusely more than usual. You would realize that your heart rate suddenly increases. You realize that your heart rate suddenly becomes higher than usual. Then you could also realize that you're beginning to have sweaty palms, okay? You suddenly start noticing that your palm is becoming very sweaty. And at some point, you might even start feeling dizzy or hazy, all right? It would seem as though suddenly you can no longer think correctly or think accurately. When this happens, just do some of these things I am going to say now. That is not the time to panic, but the time to give yourself recollection, time to recollect. All right. Put yourself in a stable position and allow yourself recollect. I'm going to be showing you some things that you will do. This you will need to do before the exam and some things you will need to do after the exam to ensure that this situation does not befall you. You do not encounter this blankness in exam hall any longer. All right. So the first thing is, while preparing for your exam or even before preparing for your exam, ensure that you engage in what we call active recalling. Active recalling. While studying, you need to ensure that you do not only reread several times, but pay attention to active recalling. A lot of students make the mistake of always rereading their notes. So you find out that you brag so much about how many times you have read your notes. You've read it 5 times, you've read it 6 times, but it is not in the reloading of information that makes for the smart student to know. What makes for the smart student is your ability to recall. The difference between you and the person who actually got distinction in that course is because that person spent more time recalling. That person can recall better. Okay? That person can recall better. The second thing you need to do is to ensure that you space your revisions. Space your revisions, okay? This is why we advise students to begin to study immediately your semester begins. Immediately you resume, that is the best time to plan yourself. For many students, exam begins immediately the timetable is out. But for the distinction candidates, exam begins immediately school resumes. So the moment school resumes, you already know you have 12 calendar weeks to go through all of the works you have that semester. What are you going to do? Plan all of your courses within that 12 calendar weeks and ensure that you give yourself nothing less than 3 opportunities to go over your work over and over again. Make sure that you have time to do multiple revision and space out your revisions. Okay, ensure that you have weeks in between your revision period. So after revising, let's say today, ensure you give yourself another week, then you revise again, then give yourself another week, which maybe probably should be the week to your exam to now revise. But many students leave it to the week before the exam and then end up having just 1 week of revision before exam, which is not supposed to be so. The third point, ensure that you practice under exam-like condition. Why do you always experience this stress blank out in the exam hall? It is because when you read, when you prepare for the exam, you read in a very calm and stressless environment. So you find yourself in an environment where you read at your own pace. So when you are done, you feel because you are familiar with the information that you already have it at your fingertip. No, it doesn't work that way. When you are done studying and you feel that you have revised, please ensure that you set an exam for yourself. Let's say your exam is supposed to last for 30 minutes, all right? Maximum, thereabout. So what you should do is, while studying, while revising for the exam, you need to put yourself under exam condition, okay? So set up, let the setup be for 25 minutes as against the exam, which is 30 minutes. So when you practice consistently for 25 minutes, you might not be able to hit the goal initially, okay, at the initial stage. But when you practice over time, you can now estimate how fast you'll be if it's exam condition. So because the stress hormone that spikes up during the exam does that as a result of the fact that the exam came as a shocker, all right? So it makes it quite an impossible thing for you to be able to recollect on the instant. But if you have practiced it over time, so what would happen will be that the moment you are faced with such tension, because you have put yourself, I advise many a times you have a stopwatch. So what you do is set questions. Once you're done revising, you've done your active recalling, what you should do is set a timer for yourself. Once you set a timer for yourself, what you're going to do is that you begin to work according to that timer. So it's going to be, answer this question in 30 minutes. If that's going to be your normal exam condition. So what you do for yourself is to tell yourself, answer this question in 25 minutes and watch how fast you are able to beat it. That's what will help you to practice. A lot of students don't have time to do this. They don't understand because they don't know the skill. This is a skill. That's why it takes a lot more to be a distinction student. That student who is a distinction candidate is not better than you in any way. Such a person's brain might not even be, you might have the same, if not more brain capacity than such a person. All right. So many a times the person might not even have more brain capacity than you. Okay. It might just be that the person is doing something differently. And I have found out many a times those persons do not even overwork themselves. Let me tell you a story. While in school, I had this senior friend that was very smart. Absolutely. You could call him a genius. Okay. So what happened many a times is that he actually knows exactly how to study and when to study. So many times you will be going for classes in the night and you will spend all of the night when you were stressed. And then you still come for night class and you spend all of the night class struggling with sleep and reading and struggling with sleep and reading and struggling with sleep. Whereas this person will sleep immediately after classes or maybe it's evening, sleep and then wake up at 4 a.m. So while every other person is in class sluggishly doing 1 or 2, some persons, it works for them. But this particular person comes at 4 a.m. So while every other person is trying to read and then by the time you're now rounding off to go, he comes to class by 4 a.m., sits at 4 a.m., reads from 4 till when classes begin for the morning. I mean, that's somebody who found out how it works for them. So many times, many persons do not even know. These people who seem like the geniuses might not even be doing something extremely out of the ordinary. It might just be because they just found out something unique. And it might just be the habits they are working with. So what I'm saying in essence is that it is important you put yourself in a condition, exam-like condition, okay? Put yourself in an exam-like condition. Practice in an exam-like condition. This will make it very possible for you to get used to stress, get used to that kind, because this actually comes from the surge of the flight and fight hormone. The anxiety kicks in immediately you find yourself in the exam hall. You become so anxious, especially If something like this had happened to you before, maybe you got to an exam hall and you were unable to do well, or you have papers you could not meet up with, or you feel you have not covered enough, that's what brings anxiety. But a person who is settled does not have need for anxiety. So this is the point I'm making. Ensure you put yourself practice under exam conditions. So the fourth point, the fourth thing you have to do now, okay, is to ensure you take your sleep very seriously. Now, when I say take your sleep very seriously, I'm not saying you should oversleep or now start sleeping. As a student who is preparing for exam, or as a student, or as even somebody who wants to be successful in life, you should not be sleep. So the fourth point is to take your sleep very seriously. So many persons think this means to oversleep. Always you are sleeping. No. It can mean sleep for 3 hours, 4 hours. Especially I don't think any serious student preparing for exam will have time to sleep up to 8, 7 hours, even 6 hours. Many times you won't. You can't even find yourself sleeping such hours. Do you understand? But when I say sleep, it means know when to sleep. For instance, you're studying. At some point, you know that you've overshot. You know when you are no longer comprehending. There's no need to force yourself or fake it. You can just decide to take a rest for 30 to 45 minutes. Allow your brain to process what you have put, the information you have passed into it already. Allow your brain to process. Allow your brain. Give it time. Just see your brain like a bag. You're trying to pack things into the bag, but you need to ensure that you don't overstuff the bag so much so that it rips off. If it rips off, it becomes useless to you. It's no longer useful to you. It becomes useless to you. When you treat it as such, you realize that when you are sending in information into your brain, you will know at what point it's already beginning to tick. Do you understand? The moment you find out that at this point you need to shut down, sometimes just take a walk. Sometimes you just need to take a walk. So take your sleep, very important. Take your rest, very important. I'm not saying oversleep. I'm saying sleep adequately at the right time. Don't overpush yourself. When your brain is saying, I want to rest, you will now stretch it. So you now take extra 3 hours. But that extra 3 hours, you didn't maximize it. You were just able to pick only 2 things or 3 things. You're just reading. Sometimes you're reading one line more than 10 times because your brain is not picking it. Then later, you now say, I've read the evening, let me now go and sleep. I stressed myself today. You're not going to sleep for 8 hours. No. Don't do like that, okay? Whenever you feel your brain is stuffed, find out if it's rest you need. Find out sometimes you just need a little rest. The fifth point, learn to distract yourself sometimes, yes. While you are studying, it is important the principle of distraction in studying, it works. Sometimes your mind is it's not like you're not tired. Your brain is not full. Sometimes you think your head is full. Your head is not yet full. It just needs a little distraction. So you just stand up, walk around, go and say hello to somebody and come back. Some guys in your class, they do that thing. You see some of those very troublesome young guys that will be distracting you and disturbing you. And then by the time exam result is out, they are the ones getting the A's. They know that secret. You know what they do? When they are done reading, they feel they just need to get distracted and in that distraction, there's something that allows your brain to begin to work on the information that has been sent to it while it is trying to relax with that distraction. So what I usually do is, while I read for a while and I find out that I'm no longer comprehending, I will step out of the hall, go and say hi to 1 or 2 persons in the class. How are you doing? How is everything going? And then talk. Then stroll around, move around, come back. After a while, you realize that you are calm now. Now, when you sit, you will now go back to our first law, which is the law of active recalling. Once you sit, you will now start recalling. So what you do is start asking yourself, exactly what did I read before? Can I still remember it? Sit and recall. When you find out you accurately recalled, then you move ahead. Okay? So that is the fourth point. And these are the things you have to do before the exam. Now we move to things you need to do in the exam hall proper. Things you need to do in the exam hall. Okay? First thing you need to do is please calm down. Once you enter into the exam hall, be calm. Is that okay? Take 20 to 30 seconds to breathe in and breathe out. I would also add here, and I feel this is the right moment to add it, Pray. Yes, pray. I am a Bible-believing Christian, and the Bible says the Holy Ghost will bring all things to your remembrance. All things. If you have indeed committed these things to your memory, it is the responsibility of the Holy Ghost to recall it. It's not just the scriptures, it's not just spiritual things. All things. So in that 20 to 30 minutes you're trying to sit and recollect, you know what you need to do? Pray. Pray. Do you understand? Now, why you have that prayer also helps to calm your nerves, help you to put your trust in God, put your faith in God, and know that there's nothing I will see in this exam that I have never seen before. That's also another principle that helped me in school. I tell myself, there's nothing that can come out of this exam that is strange to me. I might not know everything, but I must have come across this thing one way or the other in my life. There's nothing that will come out of this I've never either not heard from my lecturer or seen from the slide or heard from my fellow classmates. Or that's why you need to follow this Study Smart series, because I'll also teach you how to learn from your classmates and how to learn from other colleagues. Okay? That's the first thing in the exam hall. Pray and then come together. Bring yourself together. Okay? The second thing you need to do, the moment you get the questions, go first for the easiest ones. This would help to boost your confidence. Okay? The moment you get the questions, go straight to the simplest ones, the one you know will be the easiest for you to answer. It will help boost your confidence. The moment you sit and begin to answer that, there is a confidence that it boosts. But if you go straight to the most difficult ones, once you become confused at that point, it can destabilize every other thing you are doing. Is that okay? Now, the third thing you need to do is learn to write snippets of that question that comes to your mind. By the time you before you want to answer any question, anything, sometimes you can be answering question one, or maybe you're answering one of the questions, and then something drops in your mind that does not relate to that one question, but you know it relates to another question there. Go close to that and scribble it there. Sometimes you might not be allowed to write on your here in this part of the world where we are, you're not allowed to write on your question paper, but you're allowed to write at the back of your answer booklet if you're writing a PPT. Okay, so you go to the place where you're allowed to write and write it. If you're allowed to use an extra sheet, or you're allowed, just look for somewhere to pen that thing you remembered down. Is that okay? So that when you are ready to answer the question, those little snippets can bring a remembrance, a completely huge world of information concerning that matter back to you. Is that okay? The last thing you need to note is that it is very okay to forget at times. You see, your mind, your brain, it is not a computer. Okay? So when you forget, move straight to another question. After a while, come back and try to recollect. If you find out you can't recollect, go back to another question again. Keep going like that until you are able to recollect. And finally, if you're not able to recollect, it's still okay. All right. So next time, try as much as you can to study in and out. You might not be able to remember everything, no matter how perfect, how much you try to perfect these principles. You might not be able to remember everything in and out. Of course, you are allowed to forget. So the last point I'll make now is cut yourself some. Do you understand? Let yourself go at some point. Forgive yourself if you forget some of the things because you can't remember everything. Let yourself go. Even your lecturers forget. Do they not? So we'll see you next time on our series. Do well to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.